have a special guest, a graduate of the University of Notre Dame and the University of Indiana at Bloomington. These are very prestigious schools. 10 to 12% of admissions actually get into these type of schools. While she was going for her master's degree in environmental policy in 2017, she started her first competition prep and was a trainer and a coach at the same time, just as a side hustle. After 3 years of commitment, she turned pro at the USA's in 2020. As a taller competitor, it's very difficult, especially in a division where an average height is 5'2" to 5'4". And we talk about the struggles and the difficulties that taller competitors face in bikini. We also discuss about the issues we see with this younger generation with the increased use of PEDs and how we can be problem solvers and solution oriented to help mitigate the risks and side effects. Also, how can Fit Model, the new division that has just started up at the end of 2024, can be something that people can go into. Here's a guest with Laura Moore-Shay. There
Hey,
you are.
John.
How you doing, Laura?
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Glad to have you on today.
Today was good. I had a few posing clients this morning. I have a few of them doing Fit Model this spring, and then just did normal check-ins, and I'm here now, so I'm excited. How's yours?
Oh, mine's been pretty good. Just finished talking with my coach, Jarek, because I'm doing classic, and I think I'm probably going to do a show probably in the next year because I'm just getting started with him, doing everything, getting things going. So I'm looking forward to my journey with that. Also covering bikini and now Fit Model and going into the season. So I'm really excited for this whole season to come.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be for sure an interesting year with the new division and just a lot of athletes coming up, and some of the top athletes kind of retiring from bikini and stuff. So I think it's going to be a very exciting year.
I wanted to get into that with about Fit Model, but before I get into any of this, I wanted to share your page for everybody who doesn't know. Get you up. Hold on. Laura. Let me share right here. All right. So we have Laura Moore-Shay. You guys can follow her at Laura_IFBB Pro. She is a posing coach. She's also an IFBB Bikini Pro. And also, she has her own podcast called Bikini Things, where she talks about everything in health and fitness and in bikini with her co-host, Sammy Joe. All right. So now that I introduced you, I wanted to get to know more about you and your journey and how you got started in the whole bikini.
Sure. Yeah, for me it's been a long journey. I first learned about bodybuilding about 12 years ago, maybe 2011, 2012. At that time I was doing my master's program at Indiana University. So I'm a Midwest girl naturally. I live in California now. And I learned about it. Back in the day, there used to be magazines. So you would see like Muscle and Fitness, Hers, Oxygen. And while I was doing my master's, I had more free time than I expected. So I started teaching spin classes and I started teaching like strength interval classes. And that was really when I truly fell in love with weightlifting. And I mastered and learned a lot more compound movements and Olympic movements and things like that. So it got me exposed to bodybuilding. Some of the women who are also teaching exercise classes at Indiana University competed in bikini and figure, and I saw their journeys, and it kind of planted that seed in my brain. And this was around 2011, 2012. And I knew I wanted to compete, but the job I had after grad school was very intense. I used to work in environmental cleanup, and we would clean up Superfund sites. You'd be outside all day. It was kind of like being a construction worker, like a more skilled construction workers. And honestly, it was a very male dominated field. And that whole time I really wanted to compete, but I had to like really suppress that desire because my job was just too intense. It was too physical, way too much travel. And so for like 3 years, that desire just inside of me grew. And then in 2016, I switched jobs. At this point, I'd already been relocated to California. And I had a normal job. Like I had a normal job, 40 hours a week. I was working as a project manager in engineering. And I was like, all right, this is my chance. I'm going to start lifting, get my routine really set. And I'm going to find a coach. And within probably 4 months, I found a coach, started my first prep November of 2016. I did my first show in February 2017, the Muscle Contest Gold Coast Classic, which is coming up in 2 weeks. So it'll be 8 years since my first show. And I hit it hard, John. I mean, I knew before I competed, I wanted to turn pro. I just didn't say that because I felt like that would be too cringy. So I kept it to myself and I just really worked hard. I was super skinny because I'm so tall. And I grew. 2018 started finally placing well. In 2019, I did my first national show. Back then, I was coached by Kim Odo. I was with him for a long time, about 5 years. He's amazing, and won my pro card with him at my second national show in 2020. So I have a pandemic pro card, which was a lot of fun, wearing the sparkly masks with the bikinis and all that. And then I've done 3 years as a pro, 2021, 2022, and 2023. I've made first call outs. I've beaten some girls that have gotten to the Olympia, but I've never really placed that high. I'm very long, I'm very tall, and my feedback is always just grow more size. So I'm hoping to deliver on that this year.
So you always keep saying that more muscle, more muscle. I'm just kind of thinking, how much more?
I don't know,
Like,
John. It's one of those things. I really try not to be negative about it, but I don't think it hit me. It didn't really hit me how much of a disadvantage my height was until I became a pro. Because at the
mm,
amateur level, you're always in, class F or class H or, class A or whatever height group you fit in. And so you're with women with similar body types to you. So then, even though I was still 5 inches taller than the shortest women I competed against in class F or class H, because the cutoff is 5'7", it's, as a pro, it became very obvious that I was significantly under muscled. And like John, I mean, I'm like 170 right now, but if you look at me in a photo, I probably look like I'm 120. I'm that tall, and it's I don't know, it's kind of an illusion thing. I think I look bigger in person, but on stage, especially next to petite competitors, like one of the shows I did my very best, I was in the first call outs with Amy Delgado and Eureka Shigemoto and Malou, Jazzy. And you could, John, like the height difference was like that. Like it's just, there's even some stage photos I have with me and Amy. And it's like I'm a different species or something. Like that's why I always joke about, I always make the joke that class F or class H is giraffe class. So um, I'm hoping to at least bring at least 5 or more pounds of muscle since my last show.
yeah, and I get how difficult it is. You've seen how what Laura Lee and Janet goes through,
Mhm.
Massa, Casey, where they're longer and it takes more time for them to develop.
Mhm.
Versus, I think the difference with Laura Lee is because her legs are shorter, she grows her glutes much faster. Versus what we saw with Janet. Like, I'll be honest, I think 2015 Janet, 2019 Janet was like probably the best she's ever looked, but it was always too lean or not conditioned enough. I always looked at it like, what? But then it's just whoever got, like, Ashley was first in 15 and Issa won 19. I looked at it like, sometimes I would just think, man, she had to go through all of that just to finally like nail it.
Yeah,
So
Janet,
I understand where
I
you're
know.
coming from,
Yeah, and
but
and think of it this way, John. I'm 3 inches taller than Janet.
yeah.
And Laura, so for some perspective, think of it this way: Laura Lee is about 2 inches shorter than Janet, so she's
Mm,
taller. I would say she's like, I think I want to say she's like 5'7.5". So she's tall. She's tall for a female, but it's different when you put her next to someone like Janet or Phoebe, right? They're 2 inches
yeah.
taller. Moss is another inch taller than both of them. I'm about 1 to 2 inches taller than Massa. So it's just like when you kind of start getting around 5'9", 5'10", that's where there's just such a big difference in the size. Like really think about the size of the muscle bellies you have to fill out. Being that much
Yeah.
taller, it's noticeable. It's the same way in open bodybuilding. They talk about comparing, say, Derek Lunsford to like Andrew Jacked. There's about a 7 inch height difference, right? Andrew's like
Hmm.
6'2", 6'3". Derek's about 5'6", I believe.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. It's a very big difference, and that's why for so many years too, Samson and Andrew Jacked have always been told, "Oh, you need more. You actually need more muscle. You need to get bigger," even though they're 300 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Andrew Jack, that
So
guy looks like Mr. Olympia. Like, he would
I
walk in the room
know,
like, that's it.
right? Yeah,
When
and
I, yeah.
that's why I work with his trainer. So that's part of why I work with Chris Psycho is I would seeing these YouTube channels, these bodybuilding YouTube channels with Andrew, and I heard all this good feedback about Chris, and I was like, well, he's not that far from me. Let me go check it out. And he's been great, but yeah, it's interesting because especially too someone like Masa, for example, I'm shocked she's never made it to the Olympia. To me, she has so much full muscle. She's got great posing, great shape. And it's just like, I don't know. Like I joke that I need to be, maybe 200 pounds in my off season to carry the size that's needed to look full enough on stage in bikini.
Yeah, I mean, though 2019 year, it was different, like with point system. Massa and Phoebe actually won pro shows, and I felt like they should have
Yes.
qualified.
Mhm. I know.
but
Hmm.
they weren't allowed. And I even told
Yeah.
Phoebe, if you had done that 2019 Olympia, I think you would have been like at least 10 to 13th
Same
with
thing with
how she
Masa.
looked at that look.
I was
Even
at
with
the show
Masa,
that
yeah.
Masa. I was at the show that she won in 2019. She looked incredible. Her posing was as always on point.
Yeah.
And she's been an amazing athlete for a long time. She used to live down here in San Diego, so I've known her for a long time. So she's someone where I'm shocked. I'm always rooting for her. And I got to see her actually last month when I was, at the end of last year, when I went to Florida. And, I feel like I can talk to her and I can talk to some of these tall gals like Phoebe and stuff in a way where we just get it. It's just different, I guess, being a little bit
Yeah.
taller.
Because back then, the nationals didn't, I think it only had up to like 6 classes. So that's, I think, A, B, C, D, E, up to like F
I think
class.
they had H at least 2017, 2018, they had up
Yeah.
to H, but the
Because
height
then I have
cutoff
eight
for
because instead of six. Yeah.
yeah, so the height cutoff for H is still 5'7" though. So think about that. If you're like my
Yeah.
height, I'm 5 inches taller than the shortest woman you compete against. That's pretty significant. So the class A and the class H, you can get bodies that are a little bit more different because the class A girls, you can have girls that are like actually 4 foot something. And with girls who are, 5 foot or 5'1". So kind of the class A and the class H, you kind of can get a wide variety of body types because they're at the ends of the spectrum.
I mean, it took, I think, the time in training is the number one thing, and also the maturity. Because Janet won at around 32, and you turned pro at what age now? When
I
did you
turned
turn
pro at
pro?
32. Yeah, I turned pro at 32.
So I feel like you were more mature than, even still, you're still maturing. That's what I feel like for you that's going on. But I kind of wanted to ask you this question. The evolution of bikini to what it is now. You have been outspoken about things, and I do watch your videos, and I comment. I always say something good because I like and I praise what you're doing. Um, do you think bikini's going a little too intense, or? And I even said this at the beginning of 2023. I feel like just to turn pro, even at a national show, and then when you're a pro and then compete in the pro league to win a pro show, I feel like is more difficult than ever. What is your
Mhm.
take on? What is your take on it? Do you
Yeah.
think it's more? Do you think it's more
Yeah.
intense than ever, or?
Um, I do think it's more intense in some ways. I guess it depends on what you mean by intense. Like more competitive for
Yeah.
sure. For sure. The looks, the physiques are only getting more competitive. And this is a tough topic, but it definitely needs to be spoken about.
Yes.
As an athlete myself, right? I've gone through all the same phases that all these, young up and coming NPC athletes have as well. Like I remember getting interested in the sport, seeing the magazines and kind of wondering, like flipping through, and thinking in my head, hey, do some of these women, their hairlines, like this was in 2012, like their hairlines way back, like what's going on here? Are they using steroids? I thought these women would be natural. The bikini girls look very feminine. They must be natural, right?
Yeah.
And as has gone on, this is an athletic sport.
Yeah.
Any sport, any competition, people are gonna want to do whatever it takes to win, right? And there's, we're not drug testing, unless we're talking about natural shows. And the reality is, I think, and feel free to disagree with me, John. I think that bikini has now gotten to the point with muscularity where it's probably very unlikely anyone can turn pro naturally at this point. Like I think a few years ago, and definitely when I turned
Yeah.
pro, very doable. I think now it's gotten so extreme that it's kind of I think it's pushed a lot of women to make choices they wouldn't have made if, say, something like Fit Model were available. And I think that's where a lot of the controversy and contention comes from. Is I think there's a lot of both amateur NPC athletes and pro athletes that would have made their choices differently or would have thought maybe a little harder about
Mhm.
choices before, they just are taking compounds that are going to help you build muscle. There's real risks. And
Yes.
um, the reality is it kind of, it was something that really had an effect on me because I'm at all of the muscle contest shows. So like I've been working muscle contest shows and been at almost every single one since about 2018. Kim Odo, he still has Boost too. He's still a sponsor,
Yeah.
supports their shows. And back then and I think he still does this, like you could get credits for your coaching to work the show. So I did that. I worked for supplement sponsors. I worked for Toxic Angels bikinis for years doing shows. And then the last several years, I'm just there as a coach. And so I have seen all of these shows for years. And I go to the Olympia, I go to the Arnold every year. So I'm seeing all of these shows. I try to go to shows whenever I can. And all of a sudden, this was probably around like maybe 2022. You see the changes in pro athletes, right? Especially up
Yes.
close. You can see, hey, or you hear it, and I'll admit it myself. Like my
Yeah.
voice is a little bit raspier than it was when I started competing. And that's the reality. You start noticing some of these changes like skin texture, hairlines receding, vocal changes. You may not be able to see other things, but other things can be happening too, internally or externally. And all of a sudden, I started seeing it about a couple years ago in the NPC athletes. Like I started seeing visible like jawline changes, hairline, skin, things like that in the
Hmm.
amateur, like young girls. And that's where it really scared me because I started thinking about this. And it's like some of these women are, 18, 19, 20 years old, being pressured to, or feeling pressure to take compounds that could have real long term effects for their
Yeah.
whole life. It could impact, how they look, how they sound, their ability to have children, their ability to have, a boyfriend, depending on how far you go with this stuff. And that's where it scares me because it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like competing is amazing. Competing's so fun. I
Hmm.
love it. And I'm going to continue to do it as long as I can. But like, let's be smart and let's think long term here. There's going to be a life after competing and a life outside of competing for all of us. And our choices need to be in alignment with, our values of our health, our beauty. And I think there's sometimes a lack of information or a lack of good information. And so, women just get told, oh, yeah, here, take this Anavar, here, take the shot of whatever. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. This is what everyone's doing, right? This is what everyone's doing. How often do we hear that growing up? And people aren't thinking about it. They're not thinking through their
Yeah.
choices. And I think we could potentially have a lot of women in the future that feel really soured or bittered because they didn't think longer term with the decisions they were making.
Yeah. So when I first started, even I'm 29. I'm going to be 30 this year. When I first started, it wasn't like John Jewett. I wasn't like Corey Hageman or Derek Moore Plates More Days. I had a base of understanding of
Mhm.
knowing what I'm getting into before I even decide to do anything, and knowing side effects and how to mitigate risks. But you have a young girl coming up, 18, 20, 25 years old. They kind of just like, they're young. They don't think. They're like, I don't care. I want to win. I want to be a pro. I want to be an Olympian. They just want that instant gratification. And you kind of see it
Mhm.
like
You want the
social
social
media kind of,
media
yeah,
followers, you want the
yeah.
likes, you want the compliments, you want to win. Yeah.
But they do it just obviously, yeah, for all the fame and all, but they don't even think it through. And you see someone go from amateur in their winning the overall in one show, and then 1 month later they're a pro, and they're like, well, how do I get to that fast? Well, it's called bodybuilding, not body built. Versus, you have to take time and to grow
Mhm.
into this. But people, obviously, genetics do play a role in all this. But some people just, it happens so fast for them. Some people, it takes time for them to have the physique that they want and
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Well,
do well.
yeah, and I mean Corey has so much great content on
Yeah.
this, but I think sometimes her information is very like, maybe compound specific. I think she does more diverse episodes and things
Hmm.
too, but at a basic level, I think what a lot of women don't realize is when you first start, like less is more.
Yes.
So you want to do the least possible you can. And also, it truly is best to try to max out your natural potential first. And I think nowadays, I don't think any women are doing that. I think girls are just they're literally learning how to lift, and then a month later they're on their first cycle of Anavar.
And it
And
just, I
that's
mean, it's kind
crazy,
of just,
right? Or
yeah.
more, or
Yeah.
more, right? Because there are coaches that will give them those things and want them to win and want the clients to market their business. And that's how they do things. But the reality is, and the way I try to explain it to my own clients when we talk about this is there are risks to our health as women,
Hmm.
and then there are also additional risks that men don't really have because androgens just make you guys more of a man. It makes you more of what you already are. For us women, those androgens can drastically change our beauty and our physical appearance. And so you don't just have the health risks, you can also unintentionally initiate a gender transition, really, like if you're not
Yeah.
being thoughtful. And so you only have so many cycles, and none of us know what the amount is or the dosage or anything. You only have so many cycles. You only have so much tolerance based on your genetics, based on your environment, before you start having risks, the health negative side effects or side effects to your beauty where you cannot continue. So what I'm starting to see too is, like you described, John, you'll have a girl who competes, she wins the overall, there might be some signs that there's some PED use going on. She turns pro quickly, goes to the Olympia, and then all of a sudden career's over. Why? She has health issues, something's gone on, or there's some side effect where she's decided, oh, I can't put any more androgens in my body, or I'm not going to be happy with how I look or sound anymore. And
Yeah.
so that person's career could be done in like 1 to 2 years completely. While you have other women like Jessica Wilson, for example, who's been a pro for about a decade. She's a multiple time Olympian, and she's beautiful. And, Jess is, I think, a great role model, right? So she's someone that's a good example of having longevity. And so I think a lot of people, kind of like you described, John, are really putting their short-term goals way in front of their long-term priorities.
Yeah. I mean, I've even had, even with my coaching, like I've had to tell girls, no, until you've built something, consider if you're like top 5 in a national show or like top 5 in like a pro show and you're like right there to almost win it, then maybe consider it, but know what you're getting into before you do anything. But at least get to a certain point first before you decide, and then understanding what you're getting into. I would rather coach women in their 30s or mid 30s than a younger person, because they're going to be like, well, I'm mature. Like, you're not mature, you're immature. When you talk like that, like, I'm 23, I'm the shit, look at me. I'm like, no, you
Yeah.
ain't shit. You haven't built shit until you've developed and had that maturity, then decide. But having that instant gratification, then let's say you turn pro, you qualify, you get to Olympia, and then you don't place and you don't do well, and then you're disappointed, and then you're going to start to think, well, I need to take more. I'm going to leave this coach, and then I'm going to go with this other coach because he's going to tell me to do more. And then they push that envelope too far, and they get that women's bodybuilder side effects. And unfortunately, they live their life of like regret. And,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but I'd rather have someone mature. Like, I will tell you, I don't know if you remember Jennifer Ronziti, right?
Yeah, I would actually. She
Um,
was my posing coach back in 2019 when I did my first national show.
she didn't even put a finger on a weight until she was 30 years old. She used to be a cardio bunny for most of
Hmm.
her life, working in medical sales. And then she turned pro at 32 and then did her first Olympia at 34. But she built her physique for a couple of years. She did her national show, the one that Janet got the overall in, and she turned pro in 2014. But she was already matured enough to then decide to go and do that route.
Hmm.
The universe winner, she's 35. She's been in the NPC for over 8 years.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, was it Massa, or no? That's the nationals winner,
um
Massa Rogers. She was the nationals winner.
yeah, she's 34.
Yeah.
Carla,
Okay.
from Universe. And
Hmm.
I saw what she looked like before. I'm like, but she grew into a physique all this time, and
Yeah.
she looks great.
Yeah.
Feminine. She's a mom of 3.
Yeah. And
And
the thing too, there's no harm in starting later. Like when I started competing, I'd just been relocated to California a couple years prior by my job. I went the traditional route. I went the school, graduate degree, corporate career, like all of that. And I felt behind. I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm in my late 20s doing this. I'm late. But not at all. Like I turned pro relatively quickly. If you think about it, it only took me 2 national shows. It was, I did some amateur shows to build my size, and then I went and it just did it. And it was very straightforward. So I think sometimes women who are older, we feel like we're behind, or just in life, right? You always
yeah,
want to be a little farther ahead than you are in a lot of things. And sometimes just reminding yourself, no, you're not behind. There's no rush. I think that's what it is too. Sometimes just competing, and um, so much of our social media content and
hmm,
YouTube podcasts and things like that, I think we create this sense of pressure on ourselves, or like there's some rush. There's not a rush. And I think that's also where we can make choices that can be short-sighted, right? You can decide, oh, and Corey does a great job talking about this on her podcast too, like the reasoning why. Like it's the why to add Winstrol into your prep shouldn't just be, oh, well, I'm 3 weeks out and my coach thinks I need to be leaner. Like that's not a real reason to add in an extra
no, you just didn't
anabolic.
have the discipline to diet. You didn't have the discipline. But it's like, well, what's
Well,
an
it's
easy way
also
to cut?
it's
Yeah.
like Winstrol is an anabolic. Why are
Yeah.
you using that for fat loss? If you're especially if you already have one or more anabolics in place, things like that where it's like, I'll hear that, or my posing clients will ask me questions, and you kind of like scratch your head and wonder like, why are you doing this? Like, first of all, do you even know what the compound is? Have you even taken the time to Google it? 'Cause sometimes people want to live in the
In the
ignorance
moment.
is
Yeah.
bliss type of mentality, or kind of put your head in the sand and just like, oh, it's all la 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 la, it's fine, like don't worry about it. My coach says it's fine, so I'll just take it. And I think that's where a lot of people find themselves, is they maybe don't want to know, and so they just hope that nothing bad's going to happen and just do these things anyway.
You know, I don't want to say that it kind of, I don't know if this is right for me to say. Are you kind of alluding that you think bikinis kind of push that envelope too far, or
it's
like,
it's
I don't,
tricky. I
I
don't
think it's
think
just more competitive. I just think it's
it's
more
more
competitive where,
competitive.
yeah,
It's more competitive, but also remember that us as athletes, we're going off
yeah,
the feedback the judges give us.
hmm,
So, and that's where I think a lot of this conversation with Fit Model 2 has been brought up, is it's like, well, how did we get here that we needed another division, right? And I think
yeah,
all of us as athletes, we all want to win, right? We do this because we want to win, because we love training. And I think it's just the nature of the game. We all want an
yeah,
edge. We all want a competitive edge. And the judges, if they tell us, like, my feedback every show is always grow more muscle. It's never been, oh, I've never once in 20 shows been told you have sufficient muscle mass. It's always get bigger. So we're just doing what they tell us. And until they tell us it's too much, we're going to keep going.
yeah. So, in terms of fit model, do you think that it's going to overtake bikini, or do you still think bikini will still be the popular division?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts too on that. I think my thoughts about what's going to happen, I think bikini will continue to get more muscular for a few
Hmm.
more years. And then it's going to hit a point where it's just could become unrecognizable, or a little too close to like figure and wellness with the density and the size. So I think it's going to grow for a few more years still. And at the same time, fit model is also going to start growing. So I think long term, if I had to guess at what's going to happen, I would say that yes, fit model long term, like 10 years or more, will overtake bikini, but bikini is going to get to a point where it becomes more like the muscle divisions, like figure, women's physique, etc. I think it's going to get to a point where you're just going to need so much muscle mass that unless you started bodybuilding as a teenager, it's going to take you a long time to get to that point, whether you're enhanced or not.
I mean, my whole thing on it is I think it's going to be great as an entry level division, and obviously everyone's going to outgrow it. And I think more girls are going to go into bikini or in figure because their genetics are going to. You obviously want to keep growing. Do I think that it will take over? I don't. I don't want to say yes, because when you say that there's a limit on how much muscle is allowed and you can't have cap delts, you can't be too conditioned, I think it can overtake it. Kind of like how classic can overtake open, because classic has a weight cap. And when you tell people this is your limit, this is how much is allotted,
Mm-hmm.
it can't overtake it. So I
Yeah.
think you're going to have a lot in the amateurs, but just as maybe the same amount as bikini. But I still think, and maybe I'm wrong to say this, I still think bikini is going to be more popular.
Yeah, I absolutely think so too in the short term. Like next several years, I think it's still going to be bikini. I'm talking like 15 years down the
Yeah.
road. And again, I'm kind of more speaking to the pro level of what's going to happen. Your comment kind of made me smile when you said, "Oh, when they say you can't have cap delts." That was like the line that they told us in bikini for so many years, and that was like always the judges um feedback and things that would be put out online is like, hey, bikini girls, remember you can't have cap delts. And like for the longest time, all of us pros and athletes would laugh about it because we all had cap delts and we all knew we had cap delts, but the specifics of the division were that you can't have cap delts. So, fit model again, it will evolve, or it's, they're going to say, oh, you can't have cap delts, but let's look at it in 5 years. And I'd be willing to wager, I don't know, like a, Starbucks gift card or something, John. Like I guarantee you that's going to be probably what it's like. Fit model in 5 years will probably be what bikini looked like 5 years ago when I won my pro card. It's gonna
Yeah.
be like that. So it'll be interesting to watch regardless. And I think anytime you have more opportunities for women, that's a great thing.
Do you think, my next question is, do you think that this is going to be great for taller girls, even such as you? Because, like, for instance, Casey Samsel, who she was doing good at the Olympian, doing well at the Arnold, and then she kind of dropped to like, I think 13th in 2018, but it felt like front was like great, and I love her stallion pose a lot. But when she turns to the back, it was kind of like not in condition. So you think who's the one from she was top 10 at the Olympia a couple years ago. Tall girl. She was really long.
Phoebe or Valeria, maybe.
She was no, she was top 10. She was an overall nationals winner. Ah,
Do you remember which year?
Lauren Dannemiller.
Oh
This would be
yeah.
perfect for her.
Yeah. Well, I think Lauren is 5'6". I
But
think.
her biggest thing, like kind of like
Yeah.
you, was does not have enough muscle or she needs to keep
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah.
So this would be like perfect for her.
Yeah. I
This is
think
like almost like second chance almost.
yeah, I think
And that's
Lauren
what I
is.
look at it as.
Yeah, I'm definitely considering it. And it's interesting because some people have already like preemptively told me, oh, you have too much muscle, don't grow anymore. And I'm like, well, guys, like I don't have enough muscle for bikini. So where am I supposed to go? So I'm gonna give my best with bikini. I'd love to stay in the division. That's what I would like the most, honestly. But if I'm still at a point, 8 years in, one of the only 6 foot tall pros competing on the circuit, if I can't be placing decently or at least getting feedback that I have sufficient muscle mass, I'm definitely going to be considering switching because yeah, I mean, a division where you look like a model, I mean, that's made for skinny 5'11", 6 foot tall girls. That's what
Yeah, I
models
mean,
are.
yeah. Like Janet, I feel like was a
Mm-hmm.
good representation of like that's a
Yeah.
model.
Yep.
I mean,
Exactly.
I don't know if you remember this, but I even talked to Becky about this. I'm like, you remember 2018? She kept doing the eye movements and stuff. She's like, you got to stop doing that. She used to do like doing that on stage.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I don't know if
yeah,
I,
don't do that.
yeah, I
You're
don't know
gonna
if I
try to
remember
do
that,
things to
but
get too much attention.
yeah, but Janet, like when she won,
Yeah,
I still have a posing routine from the 2020 Olympia saved in my Instagram. Janet was the master, like the
yeah,
master at facial expressions and confidence. Maybe once she fine-tuned them and got the right feedback. But like in 2020, she like you look at her face when she's posing, she comes off so confident and and like she's very beautiful, she's obviously very beautiful, she had an amazing physique. So it's like hard to look away from when you pose and when you can really capture someone's attention like that. So yeah, Janet was always like my favorite Olympian because I felt like I related to her so much. So I'm hopeful that the fit model division gives us tall gals an option because it's tricky. The judges, I think sometimes like it's not that they don't like our physiques when we're taller, like we're trying to fit a certain criteria. So in some ways it's like sometimes it's almost like they feel bad that they have to give me that they have to give us these tall girls that feedback sometimes, especially there's maybe a few of us in a pro show and it's like you can see it on Sandy's face. She's just like, yeah, I mean, you tall girls, you just need more muscle. Um, so I'm hopeful for this division, and I'm also hopeful that maybe this was part of the reason they thought it was a good idea to start one.
yeah. And I mean, right now, I think more than ever, and I even said this was, there has to be that person to be the face of that division. Right now, it's like everyone's you see on social media, and it's this, you have one side that's like they like Emily, one side that likes Angie. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, those are right now the only two, but
Yeah.
now it's like you never know if someone's going to come out of the blue and be
Oh
that
yeah.
person.
Oh
So
yes. Yeah.
until there is that
It's like
person established,
we've had
then
one show. Like I think
yes,
it's
yes. I'm like, and
with
now it's like this bad,
like
like
with 10 girls, like nine to 10 girls. Like
I'm remember 2014, 2015, like it was like the saga of Janet and Ashley. You had one side, team Ashley, team Janet, like I like Janet, Ashley, like I don't like you. It was like Janet's the best, though Ashley's the goat. And it's that back and forth. So that's why I kind of see it as I'm like, hey, if that's it's gonna bring attention, great. But until they're in the pros, then I'll start talking about that. I'm not gonna talk about someone in the amateurs until they're like in a national level show. Then
yeah.
I'll start talking about that. But they're all amateurs until they get there. Then we start. But I feel like the negativity from it is just it's from like open men's, like pretty much
Yeah.
bodybuilding fans.
I think where a little bit of the negativity comes from
Yeah.
is a little bit, yes, like male bodybuilders. And I think some understand that, hey, this is partially driven by the fact that there are more risks to bodybuilding for women than men. Let's be real. We
Yes.
have risks to our femininity, and you guys don't have that. It's just the health risks, really. So there's a reason for it. It will get more muscular. So I think those guys will quiet down when Fit Model gets a little bit buffer over the years, which it will. And then I think some of it too is just either, women who feel like, bikini is the bare minimum for muscle we should be carrying. Or I think some people too do feel a little bit regretful for choices they've made, potentially even a little bit resentful that there wasn't another option earlier. And I think that's where also a little bit of it is coming from.
Yeah, because back in the day, it was just men's and women's bodybuilding, fitness, and then figure. Because figure came around because fitness has
The
um
routine, all the gymnastics and everything.
yeah, they had the physique round. So it's just like instead of doing the gymnastics, let's just do figure. But then figure got bigger, then bikini came along.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted something that people can go for and it's attainable. I mean, these kids that are like 16, 18, 20 years old, they're like, you know, Laura Lee fans, Jen fans, Amy fans, because that's the physique they want to look like. I
Mm-hmm.
always kept saying, you want to have the physique you want to look like. Don't reference them and be like, I need to turn into that. Like I look at Fit Model where it can be like, I can start out, I can try this out. And if I want to stick with it, I'll do it. That maybe you're going to have a
Mm-hmm.
champion who does very well and goes, well, I can't compete with Ashley. I can't compete with Laura Lee. I stay here. Like Flex Lewis didn't want to go to open because he's like, I couldn't compete with a Rami. I couldn't compete with a Phil.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm staying here. So I look at it as it gives someone the opportunity to be that person to show what is attainable because eventually that's the whole point of this whole thing. You want something that you want to look like. I mean, I'm born in 95 and I like the more aesthetic physique. So I was happy when Classic came around. I was like, and Arnold actually said this in an interview with Nick Strength and Power. He goes, I can't believe it's ridiculous that we have a classic physique when that should be Mr. Olympia. So what are we going with? Size? Do we not give a shit about like looking aesthetic and having proportion?
Mm-hmm.
Because I agree with what he said. I mean, he says some things, but like I agree with bigger isn't better. Like better is for even for the female side, I say better is refining your physique and making it work for your structure to fit the criteria. Like the standard, the Miss Olympia champion for bikini wellness, that does not mean that that is the criteria. They were the best criteria and they fit the criteria. It's just how
Mm-hmm.
your physique
Yeah.
fits the criteria
Mm-hmm.
for the division. That's what I believe in.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some things I have to ask is what are some of the things that you've gotten over the years, like criticisms, and how you perceived it, and how have you have coped with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I got a lot more criticism as an NPC athlete than I did once I was a pro, and especially once I was coaching and competing as a pro. So I think as my physique's developed, I think people just either leave you alone or they'll kind of do the, say something nice or don't say anything at all kind of
Mm,
thing. But I remember back when I first started and I was really, really active when I first
mhm,
started competing 2017, 2018, like posting my workouts, especially on like Instagram stories and things like that. So I would have people tell me like, oh, you don't look that good. Or like there were times when I'd be in prep where people would, sometimes even women would comment on my posts and be like, oh my gosh, you look like a man. And I'd go to their page and it'd be somebody who's like very out of shape or something like that. So I'd, let it roll off my back. But I think the bigger thing that affected me, and I think sometimes what we have to deal with as competitors is when it's from people we know, like friends or family or coworkers.
yeah,
And people can be a little passive aggressive, and women especially, women can be, I think, tend to be a little bit more passive aggressive than men. Just on the whole, men are a little more direct. Your brains are wired a little bit more like that. And so you can have a friend who's, I had this friend for a long time when I was an NPC competitor where she'd always give me backhanded compliments. Like, oh, wow, you're going to the gym again? Wow, you're really dedicated. Things that were very, the words were
sarcastic. Yeah,
nice, but the tone was really mean. Like
yeah,
sometimes, like, wow, I don't know how you do that. Things like that, where you're like, and you just have to kind of smile and kill them with kindness and sort of say, well, I
exactly.
like
Yeah,
doing this. It's no big deal for me. And, grab my gym bag and head out the door immediately. Um, so I think that can be hard is when it comes from people around you and learning how to deal with that. But I think if you just stay in touch with your why and why you're making the choices you're making, it's a lot easier. So those are the main things. And then trying to think what else. I mean, yeah, the comments about like anytime I post a reel, if my voice sounds a little raspy, people will always, I've had people, especially when reels have gone, like some of my reels have gotten more views, people will jump in and say I'm a man or say I need to stop smoking Anavar. And I'm like, well, I've never smoked Anavar. If you want to teach me how to do that, I'd be curious to learn. Um,
I
so
mean,
it's
if someone's
mostly,
going to say negative comments, it's just like, if
yeah,
you're going to waste your time
yeah.
being
Well,
negative
no,
and saying, and like, if you're taking your time to just go and post something negative, it's like you've done yourself a service where it's like, I don't want to deal with you, or like, why do I want to get to know this person? Or like,
yeah. Stuff like
it's a,
that. It honestly,
yeah.
it does not bother me, John. Like
Even me, I'm
when
not in shape. And it's like, oh, what are you trying to do? It's like you wasted your time because I'm actually putting in effort. I respect anybody who makes effort, even in off
Mhm.
season, or like they're actually being honest and showing themselves. That's what I feel like it's all about.
Yeah.
So I commend you on handling that very well.
I mean, honestly, John,
Yeah.
I think I'm by far my own harshest critic. So anything somebody says online to me, like I've said worse negative thoughts to myself. So it doesn't bother me. And the times that I would have like reels getting a lot of views and people doing that, it's more engagement. So you kind of just let it roll off your back.
Yeah.
But
So
no, I mean,
yeah,
I'm good. I'm good. I don't stuff people say online. It's like, why? It's so unnecessary.
you're wasting your time
Yeah.
to do that. Like,
Yeah, it's like you could be
do you
doing
have
so
anything
many more productive
else to
things
do?
with your day. Like why you chose to randomly go on my page and tell me I am not cute or something. Okay.
So, what do you think? I mean, as coaches ourselves, and we love our division. We love to help this division do better. What are things that you think that can be done to mitigate the risks of and the health risks that come with competing, be it PADs, be it with getting to really low body fat levels? What do you think can be done? Is it better coaching, better education? I feel like, is there something that you have in mind?
That's a great question. Big picture, I think the first step is always lab work,
Mhm.
whether you're natural or enhanced. It's really important that you do that. And it's important that you do that before a prep. So if you're, for example, if you're a female, say you're just getting into lifting or you've spent a lot of time lifting, but you have no idea where your hormones or your thyroid or your iron levels are, you need to do that lab work, make sure your internal health is really good before you try to put your body through something stressful like prep. And honestly, depending on what that lab work looks like or your medical history, say you have a thyroid condition and you are already on thyroid medication, you should likely be doing lab work mid prep to check that your dosage doesn't need to be changed based on the fact that you've been dieting for an extended period of time. Um, so certain things like that, like lab work, is huge. The other things, eating the right foods and getting enough sleep, drinking your water, taking the right supplements. And again, that's going to vary person to person. Supplements are going to vary widely based on your labs, your health history, whether you're natural, whether you're enhanced. Um, and then let's say that example for for I guess either our natural or enhanced bikini athlete, female competitor, when you're coming off of prep or something like that, regardless. So, one thing is if you are enhanced, you need to take breaks. I think sometimes this isn't said enough. You cannot take, unless it's TRT, where it's a hormone replacement therapy, something like Anavar, Winstrol, et cetera. All of these compounds need to be cycled off. You cannot take them continuously. That will be very bad for your liver, your kidneys, your heart health, et cetera. Um, so you need to take breaks. You need to allow your body to clean out. It's really important that you're thoughtful with these things. Like PEDs, there's a whole host of health risks. So we could probably do a whole podcast just on that because you have different compounds. You have anabolics, you have non-anabolic, non-androgenic compounds like growth hormone. You've got fat burners like clenbuterol that people will use. So something like that, that's going to impact your kidneys. So it's really about understanding your health baseline and doing things in a way that's smart. So if you know, hey, I have family history of kidney disease, most likely high levels of stimulants are not going to be a good choice for you depending on what your markers and things look like. So it's really just I think about understanding your health, making sure you're taking breaks, making sure you're getting your hormones, you're getting your labs checked after the prep and during off seasons to know where you're at and listening to your body. It's everyone is different, and the basics of just sleep, water, eating nutritious foods, avoiding processed foods, that does a lot. And then, having a good coach or medical provider to work with you to guide you through your bodybuilding is huge. And again, that's whether you're natural or enhanced.
All right. So I wanted to get into two more things. I remember you remember your athlete Raheem? She did
Mm-hmm.
Masters USA. I actually met her
Mm-hmm.
today at my
Oh,
gym.
nice.
She was
Oh,
talking very
awesome.
highly about you, and she loved working with you, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome. That's funny. I was actually just thinking about her. I'll have to text her. She's so sweet. Yeah, she's
But
so sweet.
there's
Yeah,
one
she did
athlete.
great. She did great. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
she had an amazing, like we did, what year was that? That would have been 2022. We did Masters USAs together and she had an insane 1 year transformation. So I'll love to dig that out and send it to you, John. But she's a sweetheart. So tell her I say hi next time you see her.
oh yeah. I will. But I also wanted to share this athlete because you're doing very well as a coach, and I don't know if you're starting to realize this, but you're all of a sudden getting good gems. And this athlete, when I saw her, I was like, wait, who is she? Marissa. You see the
Hmm.
screen?
Yeah, Marissa. Hmm.
When I saw her, like to me, she stood out at North Americans. I know she got second in her class, but I definitely
Yeah.
think that she's going to be something great. And also,
Marissa looks awesome. Like she, when I, and I'll be really clear here too. Marissa's my posing client. Arya, is her prep coach, but we have a close friendship because we train out of Chris Psycho. She's a trainer at Chris Psycho's gym. So I see her a lot and we're good friends. We chat a lot. We do the glute camps together. She has a physique that kind of reminds me of Laura Lee in terms of her shape and her proportions. She has very bubbly muscle. Her shoulders are very round. Her glutes are very round. And she also has the high tie-ins like Laura Lee does, meaning that her glute and like her insertions sit up higher, giving
yeah.
her glutes more of a round look. So I think, and she's grown a lot. She's gonna, I think, start prep soon. This spring for, I believe, USA's is gonna be her target show. But she looks really good. So I think whichever national show she does this year, I think she's gonna be one to look out for.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And
Mhm.
I think she can win the USA's, not just become pro, but even win the overall.
She has what it takes to be
Yeah.
that type of athlete. She has very round muscle, like her shoulders, her glutes, super, super bubbly. And, she's very pretty and, she's young. She's got great, great skin quality, like all the qualities of, an overall nationals winner. So
I mean,
yeah.
I was trying to find the picture where she looked like before, but like her before and after picture, I was
Oh
just like, what?
yeah.
I'm like, that is insane.
Yeah, I'm
Now,
trying to think where I don't know which one she's had somewhere. It's a real where if you scroll up a little bit, yeah, that might have been at the beginning of
this
her
one,
journey.
this one right here.
Yeah, maybe. I think that one.
I mean, I'm like, that is amazing. And I didn't realize,
Yeah.
and she has a snatched waist.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
she's so consistent. She's a great role model for her clients. She's very consistent. Like she always has her meals and everything. And she's a great trainer. She's got very good form, very good technique. I see her training a lot at the gym too. So she's definitely one to watch out for. And I'm gonna do whatever I can to help her get there. So it's
so
exciting.
Arya Safa, the men's physique,
Safai.
Arya
Uh-huh.
Safa, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that's Kim's athlete. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He also, so I think the connection is maybe through Psycho's gym. Arya, I think he still does trains with Chris Psycho, or he did in the past at least.
Yeah. I
So
mean, you're getting rare gems. I gotta say, like that you struck gold with her. You found her, so you found yourself the diamond in the rough. I'm like that. I'm like, because I saw her, I was like, I could look at a national show, and the person who won their class or who eventually won the overall, someone who got like second to fifth. I'm like, I look at them and I'm like, that person's gonna be something great one day. So when I
mhm.
saw her,
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, that one. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like when I posed her, because it wasn't like I went out and found her, John. Like she's just in this small private gym that I'm at. So I already know her. And she needed a posing coach, right? So I'm there to help her. Like this year was only her regional show where she won the overall. That was only her second show ever. And then she went to USA's right after that. And I think maybe she got overlooked a little bit. I think in the lineup, I think she deserved to be higher than eighth. Um, but then yeah, North American, she got second. So like the first time I posed her, I was like, where you just like you know what you're looking at and you're like,
yeah.
holy shit, this is really good. So I was not shocked at all when she won the overall her first show last year.
Okay. So one last one. Um, where do you see the direction of the industry heading to with the divisions? Do you see, obviously, like the Arnold only has, bikini wellness and fitness, because I feel like that's where things are headed to. That's kind of the physique type people are going for. But fitness, physique, women's bodybuilding, starting not to have as many competitors. Do you think that some of those divisions will be less shows, be phased out? And do you think fit model and bikini and I guess wellness will overtake them?
In terms of the number of athletes, um, for sure. I would argue bikini already has overtaken like figure and women's physique. We have way more bikini pros. We have way more bikini athletes, and wellness might already be there too. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think those divisions are going to go away. I don't think women's bodybuilding, women's physique, figure, fitness. I don't think these are going anywhere. I think it's great that we have more options for everyone. I think that's what it means. I think we're going to attract more people to the sport. I think Tyler Mannion and the Mannions and the IFBB in general were very savvy with this decision because it allows a lot more women to have an opportunity to compete. We all see it on social media. So many of us want to try it. But it's bikini, to be fair, it's gotten a little intimidating for some women that maybe aren't already gym girls. And so it gives them an opportunity. If we see fit model at the Arnold, that's yet to be determined, but I think it just depends on how that division kind of blossoms. And if they decide they want to have it, they'll have it. The Olympia, obviously they'll have all of the divisions, which is awesome. That'll be cool to see, I guess in 2026. So overall, I think we're just going to see more options for everyone. The IFBB, the NPC, remember, this is a business.
Yes.
And I think it was a very smart business move. And I think it was also great because it also gives us as women more choices. It allows us to be more intentional with our health and with our beauty. And at the same time, I think we're also going to see a male equivalent at some point in the near future because the same thing is happening with men's physique. There's a lot of guys that love to work out and are decently fit, but look at the men's physique guys and think, whoa, that is so big. How I don't want to take steroids. This is a
And
cool
now they have
thing, but I
weight
don't want
caps,
to,
so yeah.
or I don't think I can do that, or it's a guy who's like 6'4" or something and doesn't think they can get that big that quickly. So I think we'll also probably see a male equivalent of fit model in, sometime in the near future.
Yeah.
That's my
And
guess.
I mean, see how it goes. And I definitely think this is definitely great on the business side. And I think it's really going to help women's health a lot. And then they
I just think
decide,
it's the same way wellness, right? Like how cool was wellness when it came out? It gave the
yeah,
girls who kept getting told in bikini, "Oh, your legs are too big." Remember all that? Like that was the thing
yeah,
for a long time. And if you were a woman who say played D1 softball in college, like you're going to have to kill yourself to try to get your legs down for bikini. So it's like wellness created another opportunity for women, and we love that division. It's a great look. And I think fit model will be the same thing too. I think it's just going to need a little time to evolve. And we're going to see it kind of that, sort of Janet, like, sort of slightly older school bikini look where it's a very like fit, beautiful, attractive woman in a bikini. I don't think we're going to hate this division once it gets going. So it's just good that we have more options.
yeah. Well, Laura, I really appreciate you. And I would love to have you on another time and even join your podcast eventually one day and, discuss things as well. But I really
Absolutely.
appreciate talking with you and getting to know you and your point of view and in your journey to get how it is. And I definitely think doing more of this could definitely help women and also mitigate the health risks and also talk about what can, instead of, we can talk about the problem, but how do we solve it? And I definitely think that's what can be done. And,
Yeah.
be
Yeah. And
solution
just,
oriented is,
yeah. And providing insight. Some of the things I share, I feel like I'm sharing as almost like a older sister or just someone older. It's like came into this division in my 20s. I'm in my 30s now. I feel different about life now. And it's like I want to try to share whatever experiential knowledge or takeaways I've had with women who, might be in a similar position to where I was 6 or 7 years ago and are making some similar choices to what I was making. And we're all adults. We can all make our own choice. So there's nothing wrong with choosing to be enhanced, choosing to be natural.
yeah.
It's really about whatever makes you happy and, and healthy and all that good stuff. So yeah, I would absolutely love to chat with you more, John. This was awesome. So thanks for having me. And Sammy and I would also love to have you. Maybe we can do some like Arnold or Pro Show prediction sometime. That would be really fun to do.
Okay.
You're very, savvy with the key players in the bikini division and stuff. So it's always interesting to pick your brain. So thanks again for having me.
I appreciate you, and you take care, all right?
Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye.